Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to talk about the 10 worst epic champions in the game. These 10 epic champions really need a buff. Now listen, we know a big champion rebalancing is on the way soon. When I interviewed Cirilla, she said it was coming in the next month or two, but it's only going to be, at least at the time of that interview, it's only going to be Void champions. So I purposely put one Void champion on my list who is kind of borderline in terms of one Void epic I'd really like to see buffed. But before we get to that, some common names that you always see in the bottom 10 worst epics in the game or in the conversation that personally I do not put in my list. Kind of wanted to get these, I don't know, dishonorable mentions out of the way with. One is Shaman. She's a starting champion, right? You get her like 1 week or so into the game, and I think that she's actually not as bad as people say she is. She has a revive on the A3, and look at her base stats, right? Like, she's really easy for early game players and even like early mid-level players. Because of these stats, she's super easy to keep alive, be the last ally standing, and then have the revival on there. She is not endgame, she's not great, but she's not top 10 worst, in my opinion. You guys can let me know, as you always do. Other ones that I have wrong here. Another one is Lizardmen. Everybody likes to hate on Basilisk, right? I actually maxed out Basilisk, maxed out Basilisk. Wow, it's a tongue twister for me at least. For the Lizardman level of the secret dungeons in Doom Tower, or secret rooms, and he has an AoE on his A1, which is nice, and then he has a stun on his A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. He also has a self-revival. Dude, again, not the best champion in the game, but I think he gets a little bit too much hate. He's like my DPS in a little bit of CC on there as well when it comes to support inside that Doom Tower secret room. Anyway, guys, what I want to do today is kind of start with Bannerlords, I guess, right? Why not? There's, I have one Bannerlord. Dude, I always hate on this guy. I always hate on him ever since he was introduced to the game vis-a-vis the daily login reward. He's the worst login reward champion in the game, including Dark Aethel, in my opinion. Lordly Legionary. You know, some people might say, dude, Bash, he's okay in Fire Knight. Nah, I don't think he's okay even in Fire Knight. He puts 4 hits if the target is under a heal reduction, which is cool, but again, I mean, it doesn't really help you with getting the shield down in the first place. On the A2, he attacks one enemy on a 3-turn cooldown with decreased speed. If it's placed, you get a turn meter reduction, yay, on one target, and then a reflect damage and continuous heal on all allies. Okay, but with a 4-turn cooldown, you know? Dude, not exciting at all. Single target champion, very, very difficult to get this to proc for 4 hits on press the fight. I've just never been a fan of this champion. I wish they would have added a more compelling champion to the daily login rewards. I actually maxed him out right away, hoping that he would be, you know, decent. Hit hard. Doesn't even hit that hard, unfortunately. So yeah, Lord Legionary gonna be number 1 on the list. Not the worst, but just a champion that, you know, I'm not a huge fan of. Never have been. Probably the worst legendary. Whoa, easy there, Ash. Easy. She's barely an uncommon. Is Woad-Painted. She's the worst, man. Look at that slow speed at 92. Ooh, gross. And she's, for a long time, she received a buff, I don't know, like a year ago, but she's still the worst in my opinion. She doesn't bring anything to the table, Woad-Painted. Attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 30% chance of placing block cooldown skills for 1 turn. Probably her best, arguably her best ability, and it's at a 30% chance, right? Removes all debuffs from this champion, then fully heals herself, and a reflect damage on herself on a 4-turn cooldown. Very selfish ability. I don't like selfish abilities unless they're really insanely strong, and this one's not insanely strong. It would be cool if it said grants an extra turn at the end of this turn, then she'd be viable automatically, but no, that's not the case. Or on a 4-turn cooldown, you can get attack one enemy, has a chance of placing block cooldown skills for 2 turns, and damage is proportional to this champion's max HP. Yay, it scales off of attack first, then HP. She's a bad champion. She is, in my opinion, the worst epic champion in the game. But that's not all, guys. I actually have the displeasure of maxing out quite a few of these awful champions. And another one is Kalia. Now, Kalia, this was one of the first epic champions I maxed in the game because I looked at 2 things, and I made a big mistake here, all right? Heed my words of caution. 1600 base attack, I'm thinking, wow, and a high base speed, you know, on paper, she's looking great here, right? This hot barbarian, Kalia, right? And then we look at the reviews, and I'm like, okay, well, people seem to like her again. Granted, this is going back a year and a half ago when I started playing the game. I actually thought the reviews meant something inside the game, man. Turns out she hits really, really, really softly. She has awful multipliers for a champion that has 16 base attack, 1600, and that's when I realized that this game doesn't show you what's really under the hood on these champions. They might flash, you know, Inithwi Blood Twin's another champion with like 1700 close to base attack, and you think, dude, this guy's gonna hit like a monster. Not the case necessarily. Obviously way better than Kalia, and he's a Void Legendary, but the point I'm trying to make here is I really wish there was some sort of a better indicator in this game as to how hard champions actually hit. If attack doesn't mean anything, even though that their damage is based on attack, but if it means nothing because the multipliers on these skills are all in the code somewhere that have to be data mined out, which luckily they have, it's frustrating because it gets you to invest in champions like Kalia who aren't that strong, you know, and I was very disappointed. I ended up never really using her. I tried to use her. You try to stick that kind of square peg into the round hole. When you invest in a champion, you want them to be good so badly, and that was the case with Kalia for me. An AoE attack with heal reduction, okay, and then she has a 3 times at random. Each hit has a 60% chance of placing an HP burn. But again, a 4-turn cooldown on this ability, and it's 3 times at random. It's not consistent enough to be a consistent HP burn, especially since it lasts 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown or 5 if unbooked. Kalia, just not a big fan of this champion at all. I regret, I certainly, to say the least, regret maxing her out. Maeve is a champion I have not maxed out, thankfully, because she also sucks. There's 3 sucky barbarians in today's video, and as always, guys, I invite you, tell me, let me have it in the comments. Have you invested in one of these champions that I've included on the list and you actually really like this champion? Let me know. I really look forward to reading your rebuttals on some of these champions, or if you agree, go ahead and join in the call for a buff on these champions. Attack one enemy has a chance of placing a sleep debuff. Whatever. It does have a 50% chance of granting an extra turn if the sleep is placed. Okay, sleep. Slobber Knocker. I will, no comment on that ability name. Slobber Knocker is a 4-turn cooldown, attacks 1 enemy. 4-turn cooldown, places stun for 1 turn, places stun debuff for 2 turns instead if the target is under sleep. Okay. Attacks 1 enemy. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. So, and stay down on a 3-turn cooldown. Again, kind of the only good part of her kit, but it's a single target denial of revival. And again, not crazy multipliers on Maeve either. So, you know, if you just keep your fingers crossed that she kills somebody, or you could just go with Armiger. You know what I'm saying? Or you could just go with Armiger, who's way better. So that is Maeve. So 3 barbarians making the list of worst 10. Let's kind of keep it moving here and go to Sacred Order, where I have another 3. Yeah, that's right, man. I just found 3 champions basically in 2 factions that make the top 10. And one of them is Canoness. Canoness is a champion that we really don't talk about here on the channel much, and I want to draw your attention to one number. On a support champion, she's a defense support champion. On a support champion, man, we want them to be as fast as possible, right? An 89 speed, let me tell you, it really hurts. Weirdly, ironically, she has a speed aura too. You don't really see speed auras, that often on a very slow champion. Anyway, has an increased attack on a random ally on the A1, okay. Attacks 1 enemy, has a chance of placing a decreased accuracy and a leech debuff on the target for 2 turns. The attack is always critical, so a 1 enemy leech and a decreased accuracy on a 3-turn cooldown, and then an ally protection and an increased defense buff on 1 target for 2 turns. Also has a continuous heal buff on this champion for 1 turn. So the cool thing about her kit is this is a 2-turn cooldown when booked. However, again, it's one of those champions that on paper looks cool, but think about it, 2-turn cooldown with an 89 base speed, man. That base speed really hurts her. Could you do worse? Yeah, there's plenty of worse rare support champions, but I compared her to every other Sacred Order kind of healer type champion. There's a lot of them out there, and Canoness was one of the worst. She'd be the last that I would pick to kind of invest in. Champions like Hope, you know, meanwhile, are really good. Granted, she's not a support champion in the same way that Canoness is. Anyway, moving here. Hey, this chick, by the way, really cool look. Do you guys like this look about her? Man, I was kind of like looking through all the new champions. I was like, I missed Sanguinia. She looks really, really cool. Next one is going to be Missionary, ladies and gentlemen. So Missionary, very, very close choice between Relic Keeper and Missionary. I decided to go Missionary here. On the A1 has a stun chance, okay. On the A2, in the thick, attacks one enemy, has a provoke, a 75% chance of placing a provoke, not even 100%. In order to get the 100%, you have to have this champion's HP has to be higher than the target's current HP. Okay. I hate those qualifiers, man. On the A3, Humble the Faithless attacks one enemy, decreases target turn meter by 50%, has a 100% chance when booked of placing a heal reduction debuff for 2 turns, also has a 100% chance when booked of placing decreased speed. Now this ability, not too bad, but again, he's a one-dimensional type champion, right? I mean, a lot of bosses, you can't provoke anyway. You can't provoke most bosses, almost everyone in the game. So what are you using him for, right? Doesn't hit very hard. You know, like heal reduction, decreased speed. For me, he's kind of a good comparison to Lordly Legionary. Different, kit, obviously. But, when you build out a champion like this, you're not getting a ton out of them, right? A single target, hitter, not super fast, doesn't really bring much to the table. So Missionary is not a champion that I am a big fan of. However, there's one more here. Did I miss her? Where is she? Lady Etessa. So Lady Etessa is an interesting champion because she's actually unique in that she has a ally attack. It's the worst ally attack in the game. On a 4-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy with 2 random allies. Damage inflicted by this champion allies joining this attack will be increased by 10% if the target is under a stun debuff. Allies joining will use their attack default skills. So again, we're getting a 2 random ally attack. The more ally attack champions they add to the game, the less intriguing an epic champion like Lady Etessa is. I'd much rather have a Catacomb Counselor, obviously a Kalia Witch Arm, who is, obviously a legendary champion. But still, it's cool to have an ally attack. Heck, there's uncommon champions. I think there's just uncommon champions with ally attacks that are not that much worse than that one. Has attack one enemy on a 3-turn cooldown with a stun on the A2 and a 1 enemy attack with block buffs on the A1. Again, really, I would not even despite the fact that she does have the Fiend Purge, the ally attack with 2 random allies, not 3, not all. Even despite this on a 4-turn cooldown, I wouldn't max her out. I don't think she adds anything else interesting at all to the equation, and I would not build a team around her. Even in the arena, I think that, with the RNG based, 2 random allies, you might not even get your nuker, you might not even get your Skull Crown joining in the attack, and I'm not a fan of letting anything settle to RNG, especially when a lot of this game is based on, the sustainability of a certain team, right? So you don't want to go with a dungeon run that's only going to win 75% of the time. Is going to be a huge waste of energy. Similar to the arena, you don't want to go in with an arena strategy with an ally attack that you might miss your nuker, your best ally with an AoE, and then it's not a speed farming team anymore, right? So that's why I don't think that Lady Etessa, even though on paper she looks interesting and the base stats aren't too bad, a little bit of defense, a little bit of attack, little bit of HP, but at the end of the day, just doesn't do it for me, guys. Doesn't do it for me. So let's keep moving it along here, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about, in my opinion, a champion who really needs, this is the Void that I had on the list, who I really hope to see a buff on. And again, I'm going to draw your attention to the speed of this champion. 94, she's an attack-based champion, and let me tell you, man, she just doesn't, again, with that attack of 1509 and this ability, or A3, attack one enemy, has a 100% chance when booked of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn and a block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown on capture. It's cool, but it's not as hard hitting as you might think for 1500 attack. She's just not a good champion here. On the A2, which is a little bit actually more interesting here because it's a 2-turn cooldown, 3 times at random, each hits a 75% chance of placing a weakened debuff. So pincer attack is a better skill overall than I think capture, just because of the cooldown, especially 2 versus 4 when booked. But at the end of the day, again, One enemy 2 times, extra hit if the attack is critical. Pretty cool, but she's not doing much damage. She's not moving very fast. I would love to see Exemplar get a buff on the next Void rebalancing here. Even champions, like you could probably argue that Broadmaw or whatever. Actually, no, it's, yeah, my bad. You could probably argue that Broadmaw is one of the worst guys too in terms of commonly bad reviewed Lizardmen, or I should say Void epic champions. But, you know, he's much faster. He has the revival. Again, I use this dude as well on Lizardman's Secret Room. And he has, you know, an increased speed, granted the small version on 3-turn cooldown, but at least he's bringing something to the table other than not killing enemies. So I actually would prefer Broadmaw. Who do you guys think is the worst Void Legendary? Like, I think that a lot of the Void, why do I keep saying Legendary? The worst Void Epic. I think that the Void Epics overall are pretty solid, so I'm very interested to see who they end up buffing. I actually think there's a lot more Void Rares that deserve buffs, and Void Legendaries too, than Void Epics, so I hope to see those guys and gals get a lot of attention. Maybe Whisper would be a candidate. Whisper's not awful, but, you know, she can deal some serious damage, but maybe she would be the Void over Exemplar. I don't know. You guys let me know. Anyway, we have 2 champions left, guys, and one of them is right here in Necrohunter. So Necrohunter is a Knight Revenant champion. On the A1, attacks 1 enemy 2 times with decreased defense. On the A2, 50% chance of attacking all enemies with an extra hit. Okay, why not just give us an AoE? You know what I'm saying? On the A3, attack 1 enemy, place a perfect Veil buff on this champion for 2 turns if the attack is critical on a 4-turn cooldown. And again, this dude does not hit hard, and that's going to be the reoccurring theme here in the video. So a single target hitter, a chance of getting an AoE hit. I don't know, man. Like, why are you investing in Necrohunter? That's what I want to ask you guys. Maybe it's the first epic you pull inside the entire game. I'm thinking onto my free-to-play account, and I'm thinking kind of like when we pulled Masked Fearmonger, who did not make this list. I think that even Masked Fearmonger has a little bit extra he can bring to the table with the CC that he in his kit than a champion like Necrohunter. Me personally, on my free-to-play account, one thing that I'm surprised of so far, guys, I'll be honest with you, one thing, man, you actually do get a decent amount of champions. Like, I pulled a good Void rare champion, and I'm saving this for the next video, in a good epic champion, like a really solid epic champion, and now have pulled a Necro. I just stick with Kale, you know, and War Maiden. I would just stick with those champions, you know? Anyway, and get another support champion so I can actually progress. I wouldn't invest in a single target damage dealer who has a chance of an AoE attack, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it's funny when you look at some of these guys' kits, and I'm sorry for being so rambly this video, but you look at some of these champions' kits, guys, it's like they look all right on paper. You can almost talk yourself into them. Like, oh, you know what, that's not bad, that's not awful. And then you actually invest in them and you're like, ooh. That's bad. I regret that. And that's at least been my experience. Bushy is the last but not least on the list. Well, it's the least and the last. I guess Woad is the least. Attacks 1 enemy, damage increases each time this skill is used. Stacks up to 4 times. That's awesome, except for the fact that it doesn't do a ton of damage anyway. And attacks 1 enemy 1 time. It's not like it's a 3-time hitter that has a damage increase each time this skill is used. That'd be cool. Deadly Edge attacks 1 enemy. This attack is always critical. Has an increased crit rate and a weak version of increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns. On a 3-turn cooldown when booked, his passive is a self-revival with an unkillable for 1 turn. That's it, man. That's it. Bushy, again, slow champion, very, very squishy as well. Yeah, who's investing in Bushy? Are you investing in Bushy? I'm not. Anyway, guys, those are my 10 worst epic champions. Let me know who your worst epic champions are. Let me know who I was unfair to in this video. And most importantly, let me know who I forgot on this list. And I'm interested to hear what you guys think in terms of the Void epic, not legendary, that is most deserving of a buff inside the game, if not Exemplar. Guys, thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care, guys.